All right, all right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Dr. CC Says. Y'all, we have an entire blessing with us tonight. Okay, I'm so excited for the holiday edition. Tonight, we are talking about traumatic grief, and we have a trauma specialist here with us, Miss Kiva Harper. And she is going to say hello to you all in a few minutes. But I just wanted to start with a few ground rules as usual. Please say hello in the chat so we know that you are here. Please feel free to ask any questions, drop any comments that you have, engage with us. We want to engage with you. And y'all, as always, if you have anything that you want to share with us offline, please feel free to drop a DM. I will answer that. Kiva, I'm sure, would also be more than happy to answer anything that comes across. So just let us know. All right, I see we got Glennie on. Hey, Glennie. Oh, hey, Pierre. Good to see you.
Hey.
Keep on. Can you see everybody?
No, I'm
Yes,
actually still working on getting it streaming on my
oh,
page.
gotcha, gotcha.
So
So yeah, Kiva is sharing it to her page so all of her people can see. I am gonna do the same thing in a couple of minutes. Raffinay said, "Hey, hey, Raffinay."
hey girl, hey.
Yes, we happy to see you all on here. So, y'all, like I said, this is our holiday edition. The theme is what do the lonely do at Christmas? And so we had someone on to talk with us about relationships, romantic and otherwise, and how do we navigate maybe not having the people around us that we wanted to be around us. And then last week we talked about grief and loss with Dr. Tanya. And then tonight we are talking about traumatic grief. And so Kiva is going to bless us with a lot of good information. And y'all, we want to have a lot of good conversation. I see Dr. Job is on. Hey, Bri. All right. So, y'all, I'm going to start with a little bit of information about Kiva, and then I'm going to let her say her hellos. Okay. So, Kiva is a licensed clinical social worker specializing in trauma focused psychotherapy for more than 2 decades. Okay. She has emerged as one of the nation's foremost thought leaders in trauma treatment. She now speaks and she consults extensively. She is a frequent mental health correspondent for network TV and radio. She's a contributing writer to industry trades, and she is a social media influencer. And I'm gonna let her tell you all how you can follow her in a little bit. Okay, there is something that I think perfectly describes Kiva that I wanted to read. It says, for more than 20 years, Kiva Harper has heeded a deeply felt intrinsic call to help survivors of severe trauma and traumatic events heal and begin to enjoy life again. And so, y'all, that is a perfect segue into what I know about Kiva. So, I get to call Kiva my sister. She is one of
Yeah.
my next level sisters. Yes, she is my friend. And you all, she has so much passion about the work that she does. She loves it. She does work that I would not touch. And we have talked about that. She lets me do what I do, and I definitely
Mhm.
let her do what she does. Okay.
Mhm.
But Kiva loves the work that she does, and she has a passion for it. And she is a blessing to the people that she comes in contact with, whether that be professionally or personally. All right. And so I am so happy to have her with us tonight. Kiva, go ahead and say hello.
Hello, that is so kind. Thank you for such a nice, kind introduction. I really
Of
appreciate
course.
that. Yes. I'm excited to be here. I really am.
Yes. So y'all give me 1 second. I just want to make sure that I share so everybody who wants to see can see it and can find it. So hold on 1 second. All right. All right. I see hubby is on. Hey, hubby. All right. All right. So, y'all, we are going to jump in. So, like I said, last week we talked about grief and loss, and tonight we are going to talk about traumatic grief. So, I just want to start off to make sure that we're all on the same page. Kiva, help us out. What is traumatic grief?
Okay. Traumatic grief. I'm so glad you asked that because we know what natural grief is. Whenever you lose someone, you mourn them and you have to figure out how to go forward with your life without that person in it. I just recently lost my grandmother, and she's the matriarch of our family. And so when I think about life without her, it makes me sad, and I'm going through my regular stages of grief. However, when you add trauma and grief and put those together, where those overlap, that's a very different area, and it needs to be considered
Hmm.
differently than the traditional grief that we're used to feeling. So when I think of traumatic grief, I think of that intersection of grief and trauma, and
Hmm.
it differs from traditional grief in that the loss is sudden. There often is violence to the body. Sometimes there may be justice involvement, there may be media involvement, there may be unexpected financial implications. There are always spiritual concerns of some sort. And then the other thing is that that person's death in some cases may have been intentional, in cases like homicide. So when I think of traumatic grief, I think of, losing people to suicide, people dying by homicide, people dying suddenly in a motor vehicular accident, a sudden drowning, a fire. Those are all traumatic grief situations. And
Hmm.
it's really unexpected. That's the thing. It's sudden. A lot of people, anyone that loses someone, it may very well be traumatic to you.
Right.
But when I say trauma in this context, I mean that sudden, unexpected um, death of someone, and usually involves some sort of violence or harm to their body as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. And Kiva, I think that's so important to say, you know, grief and loss on its own might be traumatic, right? To
Hmm.
whoever. But
It
in
is.
this instance, we're talking about the type of loss that happens suddenly, that
Hmm.
might be due to violence, might be
Hmm.
due to suicide.
Yeah.
And that is a different type of loss. It's a different type of pain.
Very.
And
Very.
I don't know that people that experience that always understand that you might experience some things differently because
Yeah.
of that intersection between the trauma and the grief.
Yeah. It's funny because since I've been doing this work, I I've done groups, I've done individual sessions with people, and they so very quickly feel comfortable because they finally find themselves in a place where they're okay to talk about what they're feeling.
Mhm.
When I present and do education on traumatic grief out in the community, I often use the example of my father. I lost my father a number of years ago, and he had cancer. And so while it was still very traumatic watching him go through that, and his death was very traumatic. No police came to my house. There was no media coverage. I didn't have to like not turn my TV on and hope, because I was worried that I might see his picture on there. I didn't have to go testify in a trial or sit and watch a trial to see that justice was served. All of those things were very different. We had hospice. I got to be there with him. Hospice took him away. There was no crime scene. I didn't
Mhm.
have to pay for someone to clean up a crime scene. Many people don't know that if there's a suicide or a homicide in your home, that you're responsible for the cleanup. And if you call a service to do it, it's quite expensive, and many people can't afford that. So
Yeah.
those things are very different. So I like to use that analogy of my father. And while it was traumatic to me, it's certainly
Mhm.
not traumatic grief, because after his death, I was able to start my grief process. I was able to begin to see my life without him, and all of those other things that people who are experiencing traumatic grief have to deal with. I didn't
Mhm.
have to deal with, and it makes the difference. It really does. The other thing is I'm okay to talk to um other people about my dad's death, but if he died by suicide, I may not feel as comfortable sharing
Mhm.
that, because we know people have opinions and there's judgment, and I
Right.
do
And
not want to
there's
do that.
stigma. Yeah,
A lot
stigma
of
associated
stigma.
with.
So if
Yeah.
I say my dad died, he had cancer, people just show me sympathy, right?
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
thing is, if I'm going to a grief group and I'm sitting next to you, who you tell me about a loss that you've had, and the next person says, well, I lost this person due to you know kidney failure and then something else, and then we get back to me, I'm not going to say, well, my dad died of suicide, because I'm worried about the reactions of other people too.
Mhm.
So that grief, one, it looks very differently, and two, it needs to be, that needs to be considered in
Yeah.
all services, whether that be support by a group, by friends, by church, all of it.
Yeah, and I think that's why, people understanding the difference, why that's so important, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, we're used to more of the, okay, well, you passed because of cancer, or,
Mhm.
you died peacefully in your
Yeah.
sleep, or,
Yeah.
something like that. So we have, and I don't like them, but we have these platitudes, we have these things that
Oh,
we
yeah.
say, right? Oh, well, God needed them more.
You're in a
Oh,
better place. God doesn't make
right.
mistakes, all
Like
of
all
it.
of these things, right? You can't say that to everybody. And
Yeah.
that doesn't fit every situation. We're not
Yeah.
saying that God is not good. He is good.
Yeah.
And you have to meet people where they are in the situation that they're in.
You
And
know,
so,
go ahead.
these
I'm sorry.
oh yeah, I was just gonna say like that traumatic grief, right? Like that seems like it pulls for a different type of reaction.
It definitely does. And like you said, these cliches and these things that we say, um, with good intentions, because the goal is to
Mhm,
comfort people, but the reality is that those sayings are rarely helpful. I remember working with a young lady many years ago, and her husband, she was very young, like under 25, but her husband murdered their child. And so she's having to deal, and the child was like less than 6 months, so she's having to
mhm,
deal with all of that. And people would constantly tell her things, tell her those sayings, and that's not helpful. When someone takes your child from you, she doesn't want to hear, well, your baby's in a better place. She wants her baby here with her. And the
right.
thing that really astounded me, I really think that people were dismissive of her because she was so young, and they didn't take her grief seriously. And
Mm,
she had countless people tell her, oh, you're young, you can have more
you
more
can have
children.
another one. Mhm.
But what about this baby? You know what I
Ooh,
mean? And
so
it just,
validating.
she had
Yeah.
such a hard time, but so much of it was due to the inability of people to support her, just because they didn't know how to support her, and so they ended up doing more harm than
And
anything.
good. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I see we
Yeah.
got some other people that jumped on. Hey, Linda. Hey,
Hey,
cousin.
y'all.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. G. Yeah,
Dr. G.
yeah, she's
Hey.
in the house. So she said those sayings aren't helpful. Yes,
At
definitely.
all. I
And
always tell people silence is okay. You don't have to say anything, when sometimes it just sucks, and you can just be
mhm,
there with the person and be
yeah.
quiet. Be
And
quiet,
we
or ask them how you can support them.
right. And I think we have to be able to tolerate our own distress in order
Yes.
to be quiet in those moments.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
It's okay
So
to be uncomfortable.
it's okay. It's all right. And it's okay for you for your heartstrings to be pulled because
Mhm.
someone you love is grieving, and
Yes.
you can still sit and just be present. You
Yes.
don't have to say a lot of things.
Yeah.
And we find that with other types of grief and loss, but definitely in these situations that we're talking about tonight, there aren't always words.
Yes. No, not at all. What do you say when your child is murdered by your husband? I mean, what do you say to someone who's dealing with that? There's nothing that you're
Yeah.
going to say that's going to
Mm,
make that person move past this quicker. It's just not
yeah.
going to happen. And so
Mhm.
just holding space for them. I'm sorry that this happened to you.
Yeah.
I'm here to sit with you. I want to hold space for you. That's it. You comfort. Like I said, again, I get people's intentions, but that is just not
Right.
helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
And so guys, definitely write some stuff down. Make sure you're taking notes. I see my brother just popped on. Hey, JJ Culpepper. But yeah, so write stuff down. Make sure that you all are not just thinking about, because this might not be your situation. You might not have had traumatic grief.
Yeah.
But I'm sure as we said in the first live, we've all experienced some type of grief and loss, and we
Yes.
will all know someone who will experience some type of grief or loss. And so
Yes.
we can take some of these gems that Kiva's given us and make sure that we use them when we're on the comforting end, right?
Mhm.
When we're the person doing it. Sometimes just be
That's
quiet,
right. Yeah.
just be there.
And don't ask what happened either. That I've seen
Mm,
that. If they don't tell you, it's because you don't need to know.
right.
And so
It's not your
you
business.
don't need to know. So
Mm,
you don't have to ask. Again,
mm,
if they've not shared it with you, it's probably best not to
mm,
ask, because you don't know what trauma that person has endured, and they may not want to share that. I've even had families that made up an alternate story about how someone died,
mm.
because they didn't want to share that that person had died of suicide.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, the stigma, right? And we that
Stigma.
same stigma is the reason why we can't get a lot of people in the door for therapy, right? It's the same
So
thing.
true. So
You know,
true.
that same stigma. And we really, the work that you do, Kiva, the work that I'm trying to do, we're trying to reduce stigma. We're trying to
Yes.
increase
Yes.
awareness, reduce stigma so we don't have to have folks making up stories about how
Right.
folks pass and hopefully
Exactly.
decrease the amount of suicides that we've seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes to all of that.
I see Dr. Tanika on. She say, hey,
Dr.
hey, next level sister,
Tanika.
Dr. CC, and soon to be Dr. Kiva. She said, yeah, I said it again, Kiva.
I,
So
I'm
listen,
not saying anything.
right? We just go.
You just go and slay in your lane, sister.
And
Thank
she
you.
said, "Slaying sisters." Yes, I love it. I love it. So, Kiva, tell us, like, how does traumatic grief show up? What the impact of it? How would we see it emotionally, behaviorally, and physically?
Okay. You're going to see some of the same symptoms you see in natural grief or traditional grief, but you may also notice symptoms of you may notice trauma responses and what some of us may know as symptoms of PTSD. And you actually can develop PTSD as a result of experiencing traumatic grief. And so, what that may look like is being easily startled and frightened. Um, Always feeling like you're on guard, like you're in danger all the time. You may see self-destructive behavior such as maybe drinking too much, driving too
Mhm.
fast, engaging in just high risk behaviors, trouble sleeping, being irritable, maybe having angry outbursts or aggressive
Mhm.
behavior, overwhelming guilt and shame. That's a big one. That's a really big one. And
Mhm.
then we know that trauma is stored in the body. And so when you think about trauma, you can't leave out the somatic symptoms that you feel. And so you may notice things in your body like fatigue, nausea, diarrhea, and other GI type symptoms, joint and muscle pain. We were
Mhm.
talking before when we were
Yeah.
backstage about how women store their trauma kind of in their core area, but like in their hips, literally
Mhm.
in our hips. And so that's something else you may notice is joint and muscle pain, headaches,
Yeah.
heart palpitations, but you're going to feel things in your body, or you may feel just completely disconnected from your body as well. But
Mhm.
there are a ton of different trauma responses. It's different for everyone, but those are some of the things that you might see, that you might notice when you're experiencing traumatic grief.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for that. And I really wanted to highlight those parts because I think a lot of times we just keep moving and we
We
do
do, we
experience
do,
those things,
we
right?
do. Yeah,
But we just keep moving, we keep going, and we say, "Oh, oh, well, that's just a part of life. Oh, that
yeah,
ache and pain, well, you're supposed to have some aches and pains, and we just keep pushing
we do.
when we really need to stop and address these
Mhm.
things."
Yeah. So many of my clients, because I work with trauma, so many of my clients have such a hard time connecting their body to their brain.
Mhm. Mhm.
like multiple sessions of me having to ask, where do you feel that in your body? And it's so hard for them to identify that because they've coped all of these years by being
Mhm.
disconnected. And so when you have to do the work, you got to feel your body, and all of that trauma is stored there. And a lot of times we don't want to feel it, we don't want to deal with it, we avoid it. That's another symptom of PTSD, is avoidance.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
Linda said high anxiety.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely
Definitely. That
high
goes to that
anxiety.
that
Yeah,
hypervigilance,
for
right? You
sure,
just kind of
for
your mind
sure.
always going, you kind of always thinking, trying to
Hmm.
figure something out. Because our brains, and that was something we talked about at work
Hmm.
recently, how your brain will try to figure it out, even when you think that you have moved past it. Your
Yeah,
brain will still be working in
yeah,
the background,
yeah,
right? Trying
yeah,
to figure some stuff out. And
yeah.
back to that comment that people make, and it's or the question that people ask, and it's not a great question, what happened? A lot of times that comes from people trying to make sense of death,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's not
yeah.
helpful. right?
Not
So
at all.
sometimes we have to sit with that stuff ourselves
Yeah,
because it's not helpful for us to put that burden on the person that's now grieving.
that's right. Because if
Yeah,
we're trying to make sense of it, imagine what
what
their
they're doing.
closer family
Yes.
is having to deal with. And so give them that space, you know.
Yes, yes, yeah. So Shannon said avoidance is definitely a way of dealing.
Yeah.
And Danielle brought up a good point. Danielle said Kanye West, and she said, I mean, the loss of his mother. I think, from
Yeah,
us,
that was sudden,
yeah,
unexpected. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely traumatic. And I think, from outside looking in, because I don't know him, right? But, it seems like there was some type of shift that happened around that time.
Yeah.
And, like I tell my patients in therapy all the time, you're required, the society for most of us is going to require that our behavior is appropriate. Now, some people
Yeah.
have money and they can get
Yes.
away with certain things.
Yes, thank you for I was just about to say,
Not
so
not
I have
all of us, right?
not met Kanye, I've not met
Mhm.
Mr. West, I've not assessed him at all. However, um,
Mm.
I am not here to say that his behavior is a result of traumatic
Yeah,
grief because
right. Because we don't
he
know him.
may have experienced traumatic grief, but
Right.
yeah, he's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna give him a diagnosis tonight on this
No,
live.
we're
Okay.
not gonna give him a
We're not gonna do
diagnosis.
that.
We have not assessed him, so that's
We have not,
unethical.
you're right. We have not assessed him personally. What I will say though is when you don't address the things that need to be addressed in your life, it comes out.
Oh, it
Now,
does.
we are able to see Kanye stuff because, he's a celebrity,
Yeah,
but it happens in our lives.
it does.
Relationships get messed
Mhm,
up. We end up, people have misunderstandings. You don't even know what happened, how we
mhm,
got to that place.
mhm,
People
mhm.
have difficulty on their jobs, just
Yeah,
functioning in general because we
yeah,
don't address what's going on.
because it's on the inside, it's gonna come out.
It's
It's
going
gonna
to
come
come out.
out.
It's going
Angry outbursts is something you're gonna be like on you feel wound up and on a
Mhm.
10 all the time.
Yeah,
Eventually, it's gonna have to come out. You have to deal with it in some way.
in some way. Yes.
I mean, and one of your, I think you said, Linda said that
Mhm.
avoidance is really a thing, and I agree that it is, but it is until it isn't. You
Yeah.
know, there's
Yeah,
only
because
so
at some
much.
point, right,
Mhm.
at some point you can't keep avoiding
You
it, right?
can't, you can't.
And,
Yeah.
Dr. Tanya said last week, and it has been sticking with me, each loss will demand a response.
Yes. Oh,
So, right?
she's so wise. She's
I know,
so
right?
wise. We just
That was a
love
good one.
Dr. Tanya, but I love that.
Yes,
Yes.
that stuck with me. That stuck with me.
Mhm.
So either the response is gonna be conscious or not. Either
Yes.
the response is gonna be healthy or not. But
Mhm.
each loss is going to demand a response. And so my brother asked a question for you, Kiva.
Okay.
What do you recommend in those moments when you're dealing with things that are unbearable?
Mm. JJ Culpepper, right? Is
Mhm,
that his name?
mhm,
Hello, sir. When you're dealing in those moments when it feels like it's unbearable, I think I would suggest if if it was someone that I was working with, is really leaning into what you're feeling. Everything that you feel is valid, and I think sometimes feeling overwhelmed at some of the things that we feel that because we keep telling ourselves we have to be okay. I'm
mhm,
working with someone now, and she always says, well, I thought I was doing so well, but now I'm crying again. I'm like, it's so that doesn't mean you're not doing well,
mhm.
and so if it feels unbearable, that means you might need to take some space for yourself and allow yourself to feel, to breathe, notice
Mhm.
what you're feeling in your body, and do whatever it is that you have to do to feel centered again, whether that be, if you are a person of faith,
Mhm.
leaning into your higher power, reaching out to healthy support systems. And
Yeah,
I like to talk about that because you can
yeah,
have people to support you, but different people may have different strengths than others.
yeah.
Not everybody is going to be someone you can talk to. Some
About
people
everything.
need to drop the food off. I said that the other week on another show. I mean, you
Yeah.
might have, Sister Johnson at the church that makes this wonderful lasagna, and she's always willing to help, but she's going to ask a bunch of questions, and she's nosy, and she's going to tell everybody at the church. So what you do is you call Sister Jones, who
Mm,
is great at listening and a great support person
right,
and will pray with you, and you tell her to come over and sit with you, and she can go receive the lasagna from Sister Johnson and send her own by her way, and that way you got your food, but then you got your support. And so
right.
JJ, I would say just really allowing yourself to feel, breathe, notice your body, and utilizing the supports that you already have in place. It's a moment, when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that it'll pass. You won't always feel overwhelmed. You may just
Yeah,
have to get through that moment. And it may be literally 1 minute at a time, 1 second at a time. And that's okay.
yeah, yeah. Now, let me just side note here. Let me tell y'all how I know that Kiva is a therapist, okay, and a good therapist, because you changed the words, right?
Did I?
Yeah, uh-huh. And they needed to be changed because there's a difference, right? So what my brother said was when we are dealing with things that are unbearable. And what you
Ah,
changed it to was things that feel unbearable.
wow.
And that's a therapist thing. I love it because there's a
Clearly.
right. There's a difference, right? So the
Yeah,
situation is the situation.
it is.
How we feel about it, that's what's making it unbearable, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're getting stuck in it, we're getting stuck because we won't let go of something,
Yeah.
because like you said, we're not leaning into, we won't allow ourselves to feel it fully, and
Yeah.
so it lingers, it stays there until we give it the respect it's due.
So true. And
Right.
when you said that, that reminded me of another platitude that I am begging every person that's listening, y'all on the replay, please
Yeah,
don't tell people God is not going to give you more than you can bear. Don't
yeah,
say that.
because
You may
that's
believe it
not in there
deep.
either.
Yeah, it's not. You may believe it deep in your heart, and that's okay for you. But don't say that to anyone. It's not helpful.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
It's not helpful because there are people that truly feel like I cannot bear this anymore. And
Mhm.
so they don't need to hear that. You can believe that and you can go and pray for them quietly by yourself without having to put that
Mm.
burden on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Raphael says so unhelpful. It is
Yeah.
because what it
Hey,
does,
Ralph, Ralph.
it goes back to this idea that you're supposed to be strong. And somewhat like I've had this conversation about grief and loss in a number of different settings over the past couple of weeks. And
Mm.
someone said, when you make it seem like if you had more faith,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be
Yeah.
grieving the way you are.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's hurtful. That's not
Very
helpful,
hurtful.
right?
Very
So
hurtful.
we can have faith and be hurt,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
both of those things can be true. We can believe in God and still be very hurt that we lost someone,
Or be angry.
and we
Or
can be
not
angry too.
understand why you feel
Yes,
so many things, and
yeah,
all of that is okay. But because of us well-meaning people and the things that we say, this is why there's so much stigma. This is why
yeah.
this family made up a story about how their daughter died and had to teach it to their 6-year-old to
Mm,
say it at school because they know how people what the things that people might say about a suicide. So they
my
didn't want to have to deal with that.
Oh my goodness. And even that, right? This child having to try to
Yes.
learn
Try to
something,
remember.
remember to say it
Hmm.
while they're grieving the loss of their sibling.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Danielle said, yes, the strong narrative is sickening. It is,
Yeah, it is.
literally and figuratively.
And what is strong? Feeling my feelings, does that mean that I'm not strong? Does that
Right.
mean that I'm
Mm,
weak? No.
right.
You
But
know?
that is that just that the way society has conditioned us, right? Men shouldn't cry, black women
Yes.
have it all together. We need to be able to do all the
All of
things
those
all the
tropes, yeah.
time.
Mhm.
Mhm, mhm. Oh, my cousin is on. Hey, Ron. He
Hey,
said, "Please."
Ron.
He's actually in Texas. He's in the DFW area.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
on
So that's y'all. That's Kiva's neck of the woods as well.
over.
So he said, "Please expand." Other people say, "How are you?" or "I know how you feel." So, what words can you offer? Yeah. So that I know how you feel.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I never say that.
That
Even if I went through the exact same thing because I'm
but you
different.
can't. Right.
You
You
can't,
can't
you
know.
can't, you can't. I
Mm-mm.
remember when I lost my dad, someone that I work with sweet lady, she sent me this text. I had no idea what to do with it, but it basically said, everyone knew that my dad was sick. And so once he died, I had a lot of people reach out. And she said, Kiva, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. I just heard that he passed, and I just wanted you to know that I lost my dad 16 years ago. He was murdered. They never found the killer. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, and I felt like I needed to comfort her. Do I need to go help her find the killer? I didn't know what to do. It was too much, and
That's
so
key.
it wasn't helpful. So
Yeah.
what you can say, one thing that never ever misses is, how can I support you? I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry that you're going through this. How can I support you? That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Now I understand. Not I lost my dad too. Don't have to make it about you. I
Mhm.
know that the intent is to connect and say, okay, I've experienced the same loss. It's still
Mhm.
not the same. What that person's shoes are not shoes that you've been in, and so
Mhm.
maybe y'all may have had similar losses, but maybe you had the support that person doesn't. I don't know, but ask how you can support that. That's it. And it's always okay to say, I'm so sorry that you're
Right,
dealing with this.
right.
That's
I'm
always
here,
okay.
I'm here for you.
Yeah,
That's
I'm here
you
for
could say
you.
that, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
I have said to people before, I have no words.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
here,
there are
right?
no words.
I have no words. I'm here,
I
right?
love that. I
And
love that.
Dr. Shalonda is on. Hey, Doc. She
Hey,
said,
Doc.
I love that. How can I support you? Yeah, because
Hmm.
that's really what we're trying to get to. That's
Yeah.
really what it is. I see Nia's on too. Hey, Nia.
Hey,
Yeah.
Nia. My Nia.
Uh-huh. You're Nia.
Hey, Nia.
Yeah, everybody's on tonight. Hey, y'all, we appreciate you all being here with us for
We
this
did.
conversation.
We did. We did. We did.
Definitely. But yeah, and again, we know that people have good intentions, right?
Yes.
And 9 times out of 10, folks in the midst of they grieving, they might not even be paying you any attention. But I,
Yeah.
not to put my brother's business out there, but when our mom passed,
Mm-hmm.
people always say, "How are you?" Right? They always
Mm-hmm.
want to, "How are you doing? How are you?" And he said, if one more person asked me how I'm doing, I'm not doing, right? Like
Hmm.
that's just it. I'm not doing, like
Hmm.
I'm not doing great. I
Yeah.
lost my mama. Like
Yeah. How do you
there's
think I'm
no
doing?
doing. Exactly. There's no doing right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's just people are trying, like you said, trying to connect. They're
Yeah.
trying to show support. And I
Hmm.
think it's our probably like our responsibility, having gone through some stuff,
Yeah.
when we see certain things happen, to just kind of say, hey, you might want to say that a different way.
Hmm.
Or you might just want to give them some time,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Linda said, I've been responding with, my response has been not well. Yeah. Just
Hmm.
not, how are you doing? Not
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's,
I'm
and
healing. I'm hoping. I'm doing the best I can.
doing doing the best I
Hmm.
can. I'm
Hmm.
here.
Yeah.
That was my response for the longest.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Hmm.
Yeah. Nia said that's her response. I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Riri. Yeah. So, again, y'all, we're talking about traumatic grief, but this also works for traditional grief and loss as
Hmm.
well.
It does.
Right.
It
So
does.
we're
Yeah.
talking about, what it looks like, how it shows up in our body, how it shows
Hmm.
up in
Hmm.
our emotions and in our
Hmm.
behaviors. But we're also talking about the holidays, because that's, just the holiday edition. Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what should people that are experiencing traumatic grief look out for during the holidays? What are some things that will really get you in a tough spot during the holidays if you're grieving?
I was thinking about that when you told me that you wanted to ask me that. And I
Mhm,
don't know that there's a particular sign of something that you're going down the wrong path, because everyone's path is different. So I think
mhm,
the thing is to just really be gentle with yourself, use
mhm,
your support system. And I think if you notice that your symptoms are persistent and they're not getting
mhm,
better, I mean, we're
mhm,
allowed to have a bad couple of days or 2 or 3, but when you notice that you've been really, really down for like a couple of weeks and you can barely get out of bed, that may be the time to seek out support, whether that be professional help whether that be your support system, whatever the case is. If you notice that it's just persistent and it's not getting better, possibly reach out to someone that can support you. And then always, if you're feeling suicidal yourself, or you're feeling like you may harm someone else yourself, of course, you want to reach out and seek help. But I don't know that
Mhm.
there's any certain set of things that you need to look for, because everyone experiences grief very differently.
Differently. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Hmm.
And like you said, everybody's path is different.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Hmm.
And for the holidays, we have people that they're gonna get together with family
Yeah.
that they haven't seen in a
Yeah.
while, and
Yeah.
that might be great. And that might
Hmm.
right, that might be
And it
something
might
that's gonna
not.
push them in a good way, but then, like you said, it might not, right?
Hmm.
So just knowing what works for you, I think is gonna be important. So
I
if
think
you have,
so.
good healthy relationships, supportive people
Hmm.
in your life, and you are trying to spend holiday time with them, that's awesome.
That's
If
right.
you know you're gonna feel worse after you go to that dinner or that,
Hmm.
that Christmas party or whatever, you might want to not
Yeah.
go to that one.
That's right. It's just a day. Life is not a Hallmark movie. It is just a day. If you know that when you go over there, Uncle Johnny's gonna get into a fight with Uncle Bob, and he gonna go to jail again, and all of this stuff, that may just be too much. And it's okay to stay at home and
Yeah.
not engage this year. It's just a day, and it too will pass. It's very easy to get on social media and look at what we choose to share. That face we choose to share
Mhm,
on social media, and it
mhm.
appears everyone is so happy and they're with their family and everything is great, and it's the holidays and I'm the only one that's not like that. That's not reality. And so I think
Mhm.
some tips that I might give for how to navigate all of that: one, first and foremost, be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Two, use your affirming support networks. Remember, it's just a day and it'll pass. And you know anything that makes you feel sad and that doesn't make you feel better, then avoid it. Like if it's social media, I will avoid it. It's too hard. Like
Yeah.
if you lost your mom, like on Mother's Day, I bet since you've lost your mom, you probably are not,
Yeah.
scrolling
Mhm.
on Mother's Day because it's sad for you. So
Yeah.
that's just the day I'm
Yeah.
not going to be logged into Facebook.
Right, right, and
Hmm.
that's so true, right? And I
Hmm.
and it's been years, and I have good years, and I have not so
Yeah.
great years. But yeah, I don't really do the Mother's Day, or really, and
Hmm.
I lost my father 2 years after my mom. I
Hmm.
don't really do the Father's Day stuff
Yeah.
on
Hmm.
social media as well. And I
Hmm.
had to get to a place because I used to have like this pressure. And my dad taught me about pressure a long time ago. He used to say, if pressure will bust a pipe, what do you think it'll do to you?
Hmm.
So I've been
Mm.
very mindful of pressure for most of my
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
I used to feel this pressure to call certain people on Mother's Day to say Happy Mother's Day, even though I might not have wanted to even be
Yeah.
thinking about that. And so the older I've gotten, the more I have, kind of come into my own. And I've
Hmm.
said, you know what, if it's a day that I feel like talking to people, I will do that. If not,
Yeah.
I'm sending out text messages. And if I don't feel like doing that, that's
Yeah.
okay either. Right?
It's
Like,
okay.
I don't have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love
So
that. It's giving people just the permission to do whatever
mhm,
it takes to get through this. If it's difficult for you, it's okay. It's
right.
okay. And then there are other things for those that do have good supportive networks, and you want to do something to honor your loved one. Some of the things that people have done is, making their favorite dish and bringing that to
Mhm,
the holiday dinner,
mhm,
an empty seat at the table to represent that
mhm.
person, burning a candle in memory
Yeah,
of that person. There are a lot of things you can do to honor your loved one that's not able to be there,
yeah,
that may be helpful and provide some relief. But just be creative, be open, and just be
mhm,
gentle with yourself
yeah,
during this time, because it's really hard. Holidays are traditionally for family, and so when a key person in your family is missing, it changes it. It really
yeah.
does.
It does, it definitely
Mhm.
does. And I
Mhm.
told them, when I first started the holiday edition, one of the reasons I wanted to do it was because I understood that everyone didn't love Christmas the way
Yeah.
that I do, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love it because my mom gave me that love for Christmas.
Mm.
And so when she first passed, Don't talk to me about no tree, no lights.
Christmas is canceled.
Christmas is canceled, okay? But after that, once I, was able to heal a little bit more, then I started to do things in honor of her, right? And
Mm,
because I
yeah.
still had that love for it. And so I told them my tree has been up all year. It's been up since last December
Mhm.
because it brings
Oh
me
my
joy.
goodness.
Yeah,
Mhm.
since last December. It's
You
been
have a
up
year-round tree.
a year-round tree because it brings me joy. And it comes on every night at 6 o'clock
Oh
and
my
it goes
gosh.
off every night at about 11:30 p.m. because we have it on the timer. But yeah,
Aw.
it brings me joy. So when it comes on and I look at it and I smile and I'm like, yep, that's something that brings me joy. So even though my folks would have said you're gonna have bad luck throughout the year if you don't take that tree down before New Year's, right? Even though I said I'm gonna chance it and I'm gonna keep it up. And it's been a
I
good
love
year.
it. I
So
love it.
yeah.
And making those, and as you navigate this grief, establishing and making new memories and new traditions, I
Yeah.
think is so important. So I love that you keep your tree up all year long. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. My cousin said
Mhm.
I saw it. Yes, because he was here. Everybody that comes in the first time, they're like, that's a
It's
Christmas tree. Yeah,
April.
right. That's a Christmas tree. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But
I love it.
again, especially with the job that we do, Kiva, right? Like any type of joy that you can get, right,
Yes.
is joy that you need. And so
Yeah.
when I figured out that that brought me joy, I said, "Yep, that's what I'm
I
doing."
love it.
Mhm.
Love it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love it. I'm
yeah.
gonna have to use
Frida.
that story for other people.
Yeah,
Seriously, I
tell them,
love that.
please. Tell them,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I see we got some other folks on. Frida is on. Hey, Frida.
Hey, Frida.
She said everyone experiences grief differently. Definitely.
Yes.
And I was actually telling someone the other day, you can experience grief differently, like for different people in your family, right?
Mhm.
So the way I
Mhm.
grieve for my mom and the way I grieve for my dad were different.
Completely did. Oh my God.
Mhm.
I'm so glad you said that. Same thing. I've lost both of my parents and it was vastly different.
Yeah.
Vastly different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because and what people don't understand, like you might have lost your dad and I lost my dad, but the relationship, right? I can't tell you what your relationship was with your dad, and you can't tell me about
Mhm.
my relationship with my dad.
That's right.
And so that's
Right.
that's where the grieving comes in. It comes from whatever relationship you had.
Mhm.
And so that's why we can't say, oh, I know exactly what you're going through. You couldn't
Right.
because you didn't
You
have that
couldn't.
same relationship with that person.
That's right. Well
So,
said. Well said.
yeah. And so you already answered the next question. Really, what are the tips and strategies that you would recommend for navigating through this grief
Yes.
and loss? Right.
I
I
didn't mean
love.
to.
Oh well, no, you're you're fine.
I didn't mean to do it too early.
You're fine. I love that. Be gentle with yourself. That's
Yeah.
one that I use for me. I use
Mhm.
it in
Me
therapy
too.
with my
Me
patients and my
too.
families, and that's one that
Mhm.
I had to learn. We sometimes are the hardest on ourselves.
We are.
We
We
talk to
really are.
ourselves rough. We have
Mhm.
expectations for ourselves that
Mhm.
nobody else would have for us.
Or
And
that
so
we would never expect anyone else to
we
do.
right, we wouldn't put
So we're
those on other
different. We'll
people.
say, well, blah, 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 but I'm different.
Mhm. But I can do I'm supposed to have been able
Mhm.
to da 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 da,
Exactly.
right? And so we
I
hold
should
ourselves
have. Yeah.
yeah, those shoulds
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
must and all of that, all of those words that just really induce like guilt.
Yes.
Yeah. And so
Yes.
being gentle in whatever situation we find ourselves, that is so important.
Yes. Very
So
much so.
important.
Very much
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So, Kiva, what other information do you want the audience to know about traumatic grief, about how to maneuver through? What do you want to leave them with?
I think the only other thing that I want to share, and you and I were talking about this as
Mhm.
we were, you know, putting this together,
Mhm.
is that someone has probably given you this paper that has the stages of grief on it.
Yes.
And we all learned about that in school, and we understand, the Kubler-Ross is the person who developed those stages of grief.
Mhm.
But when we're dealing with traumatic grief, that goes out of the window. And so if anyone is giving you a list and say these are the stages of grief, just put it away. Put it away because your grief journey is going to be your grief journey. And you
Yeah.
may not go seamlessly through the stages, or some stages you may not feel at all. I often hear people say, oh, she hasn't cried yet, I'm just waiting for her to cry. Maybe she won't. You know, not
Yeah.
everyone expresses it the same way. So you're not going to seamlessly go from denial to acceptance, and go through all of the stages. That just is not realistic. And so
Mhm.
if someone is giving you that and you're using that as a guide to help you navigate your grief, some of those things are valid for sure. But she herself, when she was dying, revisited these stages of grief herself. So
Mhm.
just know that there is no right way to grieve, and there is no seamless list of stages that you go through. Your grief is your grief, and it's okay to not go through certain stages.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I love that part about it's not seamless.
Yeah,
Nothing is
okay.
seamless, right? Like nothing
That's
is
it.
textbook. I don't
Mhm.
care who comes in my office, what they say, like, oh, this is a textbook ADHD case. No, it's not.
No, no, it's not.
Mm-mm.
And what is
No,
that anyway? What does that look
right,
like?
exactly. What would that look like? No, it's not.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Kiva, I have kids who come in and they will say, well, I feel bad. I said, oh, you feel bad because you lost someone. Now I feel bad because I haven't cried yet.
Mm,
Well, who told you you had to cry?
right,
Like, where did that come from? But
right.
again, like I tell adults all the time, our kids see what we do. We model for
They
them,
do.
right?
They
Certain
do.
behaviors and attitudes. And so we have to be careful about what we're
Yeah,
doing and what we're saying because they're picking
yeah.
up.
It's so true. Dealing with grief professionally so much, I don't always immediately cry. My reactions are very different. I'm so used to being controlled in a crisis, and
Yeah,
that's my go-to. And I may or may not cry, but that doesn't mean that I'm any less hurt than the other
exactly.
person.
Exactly.
Just because I'm not screaming and fainting and trying to climb into the casket, that doesn't mean
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that I'm not grieving, right? And so being able to respect the way that others grieve, some may
yeah,
be more emotional, some may not, but
yeah,
we all have to get through it the way we get through it. I see
yeah.
with a lot of men anger, because that's an emotion that most men are
That's
comfortable
acceptable.
experiencing.
Hmm.
That's acceptable. And so
Hmm.
you may see that, you may not see any tears, and you should wait for the person to cry because they may not. Now if you need to release, of course, by all means, but that's not a requirement.
Thank you. But it is
Mhm.
not a requirement. It is not a requirement.
No.
Dr. Shalonda said, Kiva, you're not a casket climber.
No, I'm not. No, no. I don't even like to see people in the casket. I like to remember them the way that they were. So yeah, you won't see me up there.
And we're not judging, right? Like whatever
No
your
judgment.
process
Yeah.
is, right, is your process. But don't
But
judge other
respect
people.
mine too. Right. Respect
Exactly. Don't
mine
judge
too.
other people for their
Mhm.
process. Now,
Yeah.
Pierre asked a really good question. He said, is it possible there could be cultural implications with traumatic loss?
Oh my goodness. Pierre, you're so amazing. That is such a great question. And I'm so glad you asked it because I didn't touch on that. But absolutely. Culture as it relates to race and ethnicity, culture as it relates to faith, so many
Mhm.
things. Yes, yes. And that is something to take into consideration. For those of us that are professionals in the group that treat this, you definitely want to take that into consideration. And then for those of us that are wanting to support others or experiencing it, understand that culture plays a huge part. And again, it's not
Mhm.
just race, it's all aspects of
Of
culture.
culture.
And
Yeah.
it's important to understand and respect whatever that person's culture is. I have an example, and this was a former student of mine, and she had written a paper about her grief, and she said that her family was very comforted because they were all Christians and they believed that they would see their loved one again. But she is agnostic, and for
Mhm.
her, it was final. And a lot of people couldn't understand that. And so just understanding and respecting people's beliefs, their whatever aspect of culture you're focusing on, and understand that even different generations may
Yeah,
handle grief differently as well.
yeah,
But yes, very good question, and it's a crucial part of traumatic grief.
yeah, yeah. And like you said, that's good for everybody, especially though for us that are professionals, right? That are
Yeah.
dealing with this. This might come through our door.
Mhm.
Make sure that you have what we call some cultural humility.
Yes,
So a lot of
yes.
people talk about cultural competence. We're kind of trying
Mhm,
to move away from that, but cultural
mhm,
humility. So you
mhm.
understanding that you will never know all that could be known about somebody else's culture,
Yeah,
but you create the space to ask. You create a space where they want to share and where they feel safe.
yeah. And then
Definitely.
I'll take it a step further, and we want to be culturally responsive. So with
Yes.
that information, respond in a way that they need, and that's helpful for them.
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely. Okay, so my cousin had another question. He said, "What advice do you have for how to deal with grief when a loved one is experiencing dementia or paranoid schizophrenia?"
That
That's
that
yeah, you're
that's a
grieving,
great one.
right? You're grieving someone
Mhm.
that's still here, right?
Is this
But you're
cousin Ron?
this cousin Ron.
Okay, cousin Ron, I'm gonna have to send Christy. I did a Facebook Live last year, I don't know, one recently,
Okay,
and I think it was on Mother's Day. And what I talked about was that some of us are experiencing losses of people that are still here. And so
still
when you
here.
have a loved one that has dementia, they're physically still here, but they're not here. And
Yeah,
that's a weird loss to explain because when we think of grief, we think of death, but they're still here. And then, like you said, someone who is living with schizophrenia, they're not always um, aware, grounded in reality. And
yeah,
so those things are very difficult to navigate. Suggestions for how to do that: know that it's a loss as well, and it's okay to grieve the loss of the life you had hoped that person would have, right?
yeah,
You think of, when you think of your loved ones, you think, okay, as this person gets older, we're going to do this, or this is what I imagine them aging looking like. And then that person doesn't even remember you. That's a loss. And so allow yourself to grieve that, and then um, start to establish what your new normal is. Start to cherish those lucid moments that you get. There may not be many of them, but when you have them, cherish those,
yeah,
and your memories and the times that are good. Focus on those, enjoy those, and accept the new normal. It's
yeah,
hard, but that's what
yeah,
you have to do, and
yeah,
make the best of that. And know that your loved ones, you may have a person that can't tell you they love you, but they do other things. Their face lights up when they see you.
mhm,
That's their way of showing. So learning how to really slow down and grasp those other things that can convey the same message.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely being mindful and being in the moment and being
Yeah.
aware. Like you said, slow it
Yeah.
down.
Slow it
Yeah,
down, because you
yeah,
may miss it. You may miss the fact that
mhm,
when you walk in the room, their eyes light up. You may miss that if you don't slow down.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shalonda said the loss of expectations or loss of what
Mm,
and is real, but
so
often
true.
not acknowledged. And I think
Yes.
that's the part a lot of times people will feel bad, so to speak, about grieving because they're like, well, the person is still here. They are, and there is still a loss, even if it's something as well, I'm not going to say it's simple, but something like chronic pain or
Yeah.
chronic illness,
Yeah.
right, of
Yeah.
some sort, which is actually going to be our live next week. We're going to talk about navigating chronic illness while
Love
you're
it.
in the holidays, right? But
Ooh, I'm
that's
gonna tune in to that.
yes, yes, but that's also loss as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
Like so, y'all, you know, Kiva gave us plenty of gems tonight. Some of the things that I hope you all really take away, and some things I'm going to take away: be kind, be gentle to yourself. Make sure you slow down. Make sure you understand and you really accept the fact that your journey is your journey. Your journey of grief, your journey through life, your journey of acceptance,
Yeah.
all of that might look different from somebody else, and that's okay.
Yes.
It's all right that it's
It's
different.
okay. It is
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yes. Very well
And
said.
yeah, and my favorite is it's okay to be quiet.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's a nice way of saying it, but yeah. Shut up.
Right. It's okay to be quiet. Yeah. And just and be sit there and be with the person. If
Yeah.
it's on the phone, if it's in person, whatever it is, if you're trying to comfort someone, it's okay to sit there quietly with them. That's all right.
And like you
Mhm.
said, learn to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
You may not be comfortable with silence, but for that to help that person
Mhm.
sit there uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I tell folks doing therapy has given me a lot. That's one of it. One of them.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah.
okay with silence.
The magic that happens during the silence.
Yes. Oh,
Oh
that's a
my
sermon,
goodness.
Kiva. Yeah.
Ooh, magic
Look,
happens during the silence.
look. I'm gonna tell my pastor that so he can preach on that one. Hmm.
The
I
truth.
like
It's
that.
the truth. A lot of
Yeah.
times I'm like, man, if I had said something, this we wouldn't even be here, you
Ah,
know?
it would have messed it up. It would have messed
Mhm.
up the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kiva, thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
coming through.
having me. I'm so
Yes.
excited to be a guest, and I'm so
Yeah.
excited about your audience. They're so engaged. I love it.
I love it. Yes, they know I like to talk and I like to work. They know that. So I like for them to talk. And y'all, I appreciate all of the comments and all of the questions. I hope you all were truly blessed tonight. And y'all, we are going to get through this holiday season as best we can. So whatever
That's
that means,
right.
whether that means we are enjoying it, whether that means it's just another day to us, whatever it is, I hope that this holiday edition has helped you in some way to be able to get through the holidays.
I love
Okay.
it. Sometimes the goal is just to get through it. That's it.
That's it.
That
That's
is the
that's all we
goal.
got.
Yeah. It don't
Oh,
have to
hey,
look
Kiana.
pretty at all. Who is that?
Yeah, Kiana. So one
Oh,
of one of my friends from Atlanta. Yeah. All right. So y'all, thank you so much. I know that there are some people on here, at least about 4 or 5 people that are in the midst of grieving
mm,
right now. Right,
mm,
in the midst of it. So I just want everybody to know we are praying for you. We are praying with you. And let us know how we can help because we
yes.
are more than available to help.
Yes.
Okay. And more than willing as well.
Mhm.
All right. So, y'all, that is it for tonight. Kiva, tell the people how they can follow you because if you all are not following her, you should be. Kiva is out here in these social media streets. She
In
is doing
these
live.
streets.
Yeah, she's doing the lives. She is interviewing or doing interviews, doing other people's shows. She is blessing the folks with all sorts of information. And Kiva, one other thing I love about you, you post consistently and you
Okay,
always.
I have to shout out my colleague Pierre. He's in the audience there. Nothing would
Uh-huh.
happen if it wasn't for
Without Pierre.
Pierre.
Well,
Oh,
Pierre,
oh
thank
God.
you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Pierre.
Yes, because
He
I be
keeps
looking
me on
forward to the
target.
post.
Yeah, he keeps me on target. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
I
amazing.
be looking
So
forward to
we're a great team.
awesome, awesome. So
Mhm.
tell everybody how they can follow you. I got some links here. I'm gonna drop in the
Okay.
chat.
So the first link that you're dropping is the link to my VIP list. And so
Yes.
if you sign up for the VIP list, you will be the first to know the things that I'm doing. I have some exciting things happening in 2023, and I'm going to be really doing a lot of things to help new clinicians, new counselors, new social workers. So I'm really excited about that. The second link is my LinkedIn profile, and that is where I have my greatest following. So if you're on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn. If you don't do LinkedIn, my name is not that common. Just type in Kiva Harper, LCSW, and you'll find me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. What's that other one? Twitter. I'm on TikTok. I don't really, I'm not smart enough to figure that one out yet,
That's
but I
look,
will.
that's
I
me
will.
too.
I
That's me.
will. YouTube too, all of that, so just search for me. It's not that hard to find me, and follow me and interact with me, please, please.
Yes. So y'all, I am dropping them in multiple chats. So give me a second. I am look, we gonna we gonna make it do what it do.
All right.
And my cousin Ron said, Christy, give me her contact info. I'm old school.
I'm old school. Okay, cousin
Oh, I
Ron.
will.
So what does that what does that mean? Old school. So he
I'm
don't
gonna
do the
have to.
computer.
And he does. He on there now. I'm gonna have to text it to him though. It's fine.
Yeah, cousin Ron, we don't have no house phone or nothing like that, so I don't know.
And I don't know why he's not that old. I don't know why he acting like that, but I'll get
We'll
it to
work it
him.
out. We'll work it out.
I will get it to him. But y'all, we have enjoyed having everybody on. Kiva, again, thank you so much for being here with me
Thank
and for
you.
giving us all of this great information. So, guys, follow us. And you all know how to get in touch with me, but follow everybody. Make sure you get all of the information. We will be dropping information on all of the different platforms during the holidays. I know we both have some stuff coming up in 2023 that's going to be a blessing to folks. So you all be on the lookout for that. If you have not signed up for the VIP list, do that so you can get all the information. Ron says he retires next week. He's
All
real excited
right.
about that. We've been talking
Congratulations.
we've been talking about it in the cousin group chat.
I
So
love
yes,
it. I love
congrats.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
But for everybody, meet us back here next Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to talk about navigating chronic illness during the holidays. All
That's
right.
right.
But that's it for tonight, y'all. Y'all be blessed.
Good
Bye.
night.